Hey friends, it's Sarah, and today we're going to find out if I managed to complete my courses for the autumn equinox semester of the Magical Readathon. So if you watched my last video, you know that I'm a little bit of an overachiever when it comes to this readathon specifically, because I selected the career that would have me reading as many books as possible. And usually I really enjoy that challenge, but this year with the readathon being in September, it coincided with a vacation that had been planned for close to 6 months, so I had 2 weeks to read 14 books. And knowing that I had this extra time restriction, I did try and choose a bunch of graphic novels and manga and shorter books to make this a little bit easier on myself, but it was still quite the feat. As a Canadian, I do have a hard time bragging, but I am happy to say that I absolutely crushed this challenge and read 28 books out of 14. So, you know, a little humble brag. But the first day of September, I didn't have to work, so I just sat down and I read the entire day. And I read 8 different books, I think 7 graphic novels, and then 1 middle grade fiction book. And I actually read all 14 of the books that I needed to by September 10th. So with the rest of the month, I read a few books for the lore side quest, and then just whatever I wanted, some of which I ended up counting as extra courses, and some of which didn't count for the readathon, but I was on a roll, so who am I to stop reading? With all that said, I want to start off with some stats, because who doesn't love some book stats? We love some little numbers. In total, as I said, I read 28 books, which ended up being 8,777 pages, and I rated them at an average of 3.96 stars, which is great, which means I liked them a lot. I don't think any of them were 2 stars, it was 3 to 5 stars, which was great. 28 books is also a lot to talk about in any level of depth, so I'm going to be splitting this video into 2. This video that you're currently watching is going to be just the books that I read for my required courses for my career as an alchemist, so that TBR video, if you watch that, I'm going to cover everything that I read for those courses. But then the second video will be the books that I read for the lore side quest, any extra courses that I took, and then the other books that I just read for myself. So, without further ado, here are the books that I read for the required courses for the alchemist calling. Up first, my O level in animal studies was The Phoenix of Destiny by Geronimo Stilton. I did not read this book because it is for children. I was supposed to read The Phoenix Bride for this course, but it wasn't coming in from the library quick enough before I was going on vacation, so I ended up just searching Phoenix on the library's catalog and got The Phoenix of Destiny by Geronimo Stilton out instead. I have not read a Geronimo Stilton book since I was in elementary, so this was an incredible throwback. I still love all the fun fonts for different words, the little mouse puns in the book, very charming, very enjoyable. And as I said, I didn't end up rating this one because it is meant for 6 to 8-year-olds. So this book was 581 pages of constantly moving the goalposts and Geronimo going on new side quests, which felt very repetitive to read as an adult, but I'm sure is great for a kid who loves Geronimo Stilton Adventures and just wants to keep following him as he bumbles his way around these magical quests. So no rating for that one because I am nowhere near the intended audience for this book. For my O level in astronomy, I read Crushing It by Erin Becker, which I gave 4 stars. This was a 9 to 12 book about 2 girls on a soccer team together who used to be best friends. They're also talking to each other online without knowing that they are each other, they don't know their real identities, but it's a story about the loss of friendship, of shouldering responsibilities, and of the struggles of junior high school. There's also some queer representation in it, and I gave it 4 stars. I thought it tackled issues that tweens face really well. I thought the characters were very realistic and had that kind of sometimes read a teen or a tween book and you're like, oh my god, you're making bad decisions, but it's all for the growth of the character and it's all really realistic. There's some of that in here, but I thought that it was all resolved really well and they showed some great resolution of the conflicts. For my O level in alchemy, I actually ended up going to the Guild Emporium and purchasing the Scroll of Continuity so that I could continue reading a book that I had started in August, I think one day before the readathon started. But that was The Glass Castle by Jeannette. As I said, I started reading the book the last day of August and I thought, oh man, this is really going to hit me in the feels. So I decided to use this for the prompt of book that will make you emotional, because I was like, it's already making me emotional. And I have a lot of guild points saved up, so I figured why not put them to some good use and make my life easier. So I just kept reading this book from the previous month. So The Glass Castle is an autobiography of a woman who grew up in poverty and in an incredibly dysfunctional family. Her father's an alcoholic and her mother is super neglectful, often leaving the kids to their own devices. For example, the book opens with a story of the author boiling hot dogs to eat at 3 years old and then getting crazy burns from the water and having to go to the hospital. And the rest of the book is just equally wild and upsetting stories from her life. I gave it 4 stars. I thought it was really well written, but it is just like, oh my god, how did you turn out okay? That's like, yikes. Okay, Parsnip has decided to join us for this part of the video. We'll see how that goes. She's in quite the mood. But then for the Q level of alchemy, I read Lore Olympus Volume 4 by Rachel Smythe. I think I said in my other video, I have read this webtoon, and so I was just like, I'll just read this graphic novel because I've enjoyed it and it's fun, it's easy, it's quick, why not? I really like the art in this, I like the reinterpretation of the Persephone and Hades myth, and I'm not going to talk about the plot because it's right in the middle of the series and I don't want to spoil anything. But it was very sweet, very romantic, and lots of fun. I would highly recommend checking it out. I gave it, I think, 4 stars. Then for the final level in alchemy for the D level class, I read Eat a Peach by David Chang. This is a memoir from the creator chef of Momofuku. It was a really interesting look into the back end of starting a restaurant and a culinary empire, as well as the different types of restaurants that he and his team opened, the different experiments they tried, and how that all worked out. He talked about his own shortcomings a lot, which I really appreciated, but did make me feel really bad for his wife and family. I ended up giving it 3.5 stars because I do think that some of the stories made him pretty unlikable, which I appreciated the honesty, but I was like, maybe we fix some of those things. Then for the O level in Inscription, I read Lumberjanes, The Infernal Compass by Lilah Sturges. I love the Lumberjane series. I think it's so cute. This was like a fun kind of side quest for the Lumberjane girls after the regular series had finished. I just think that the art, the characters, and all the shenanigans are so good. It always hits, and it's 5 stars for me every time. I just think it's such an endearing, charming series. Then for the Q level of Inscription, I read Flamer by Mike Curato. This is another graphic novel that takes place at a summer camp. However, it is not full of fun shenanigans. It's about a boy figuring out his sexuality at camp and trying to avoid being bullied while dealing with all of this, and also having a crush on his friend. It was, I believe, semi-autobiographical, and I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. I thought it was a good book for kids who are probably going through a similar thing, who are struggling with their sexualities, and you know, the ways that other kids can be quite cruel. But overall, very hopeful, very lovely. For the final level of Inscription, I read With Love from Cold World by Alicia Thompson. This one was a 3-star read for me. It was kind of disappointing, honestly, but it follows 2 coworkers at a winter-themed theme park in Florida who don't get along, and they have to compete to come up with an idea to save the park. Of course, I fall in love. This is a romance book, but it was also a lot heavier than I expected. There's this side story of the main character being a sort of foster check-in person. She visits kids at their foster homes and makes sure that the parents are treating them okay and that they're doing all right, because she herself was adopted, and so she's got this her life's purpose a little bit. So that was really quite the twist from the silly shenanigans at the Cold World place. And the characters really just did not have much chemistry, and they started out so antagonistic that the switch from trash talking each other behind their backs to absolute lust felt incredibly abrupt, and no, it wasn't for me, unfortunately, despite the incredibly cute cover. Then for the Spells and Incantations O level, I read Barda by Ngozi Ukazu, my love. I love her stuff so much. Check Please is my favorite thing ever. I love her art so much, and so I was like, I'll read whatever you write, girl. I'll read whatever you draw. I am here for you. I was not familiar with Barda, which I guess is a DC character. This is like a DC graphic novel that she has written. So I was like a little confused at the beginning, but I did enjoy the story at the end. I think it was pretty short. I would have loved like a longer story that maybe had a bit more like explanation of what was going on, because I did find myself relatively confused for quite a bit of the book. But maybe if I reread it, I would have a better time with it. It was still a 4-star read. I love the art. I love the character growth that happened in it, but I would totally read this if it was like 300 pages instead of, I feel like it was under 200. I'm not sure if that's right, but it was like a comic book. If I'm not wrong, she is writing more in the like Barda series or universe. So I'm looking forward to that because I would like to see where the characters go after the end of the story. Then for the next level of spells and incantations, for the Q level, I read Our Dining Table by Mita Ori. This was a very sweet manga about a man who has anxiety around eating in front of other people, but he meets two brothers, one who is like his age and one who's, I want to say 6, and they get him to teach them how to cook because he makes like really tasty food. And the main character and the older brother fall in love. Is very sweet. But I wish it was almost like a short series or even a longer series. I don't know. It's just one book. Because it was just one book, the relationship between the two guys felt a little, maybe not quite rushed, but I would have loved to see a longer exploration, maybe a slower burn of the relationship so you can see them get to know each other better and really like deepen their connection. I think that would have been lovely. But it was still super cute. I give it 4 stars. I just thought it was the sweetest little thing. Then for the O level of restoration, I read, I have this one actually. All the other ones I had to go back to library, but I own this one. I read Gravity Lost by L.M. Sagas. This is a sequel to Cascade Failure, a great sequel. Again, I'm not going to talk about the plot because it continues the events from the first book, but this also expanded on the kind of like messy found family dynamic and sent the Ambit crew on further space shenanigans. I really love these characters, and I really hope there's a 3rd book coming in this series. It doesn't say so on Goodreads, but I think there's more we can do. I think this could be a sort of Firefly style thing where it's just like little, episodic books. They don't have to continue. I just want to see these guys doing space shenanigans with their spaceship, their safe spaceship.
This here is a ship, and it's a spaceship.
Safe space.
It's a safe spaceship.
I gave this 4 stars. I think the same as the other. I think Cascade Failure was also 4 stars. My only real complaint with these is that the world building is a little weak. There's these 3 governmental agencies that I confuse for each other all the time. So some of the world building I think might need a little tweaking, but I really love these characters, and so that was enough for me to just kind of let the world building be a little messy and be slightly confusing. It didn't really impact how much I love these characters and how desperately I want them to just continue running around so I can watch them. I also really want a 3rd book because I want Jal and Saint to get together. Like, there's something there. I think they're in love and they just won't admit it, but whatever. That's up for debate. Someone else read this book so we can talk about that. Moving on. For Demonology, the O level of Demonology, I bought a Scroll of Replacement because I think this was the one where you're supposed to you're supposed to get a recommendation from a non-reader, and I don't have any of those in my life. So I bought the Scroll of Replacement from the Guild Emporium, which means I could just replace it with whatever book I wanted. And I used that to read Men Have Called Her Crazy by Anna Marie Tendler. This, unfortunately, was another bit of a disappointment for me. This is a memoir by the artist Anna Marie Tendler, who used to be married to John Mulaney. And she talks about her experience with like men and mental health, and also her time in 2021 when she checked herself into a psych hospital. Unfortunately, this book felt like she didn't really learn anything. It felt very like man-hating and unhealthy by the end. It went from, here are issues I've had with men, to just straight up like, all men are evil, don't trust them, they're always out to get you, which I found very alarming. And I was like, I don't think this is a healthy way to live because, men are people too. Controversial take, I know, but it was just like, didn't feel great. And coming from like an almost 40-year-old woman, like she's in her late 30s, it just felt very immature and not a therapized way of looking at the world. She also doesn't talk about her divorce from John Mulaney. which, you know, I think is mentioned in the marketing, that she like doesn't talk about it, and it's like kind of a notable absence from the book, which I don't know. She does talk about how she's never had a real job and she's always had like a man to like support her so she can like do her art. And I feel like excluding the man that you were married to and who allowed you to do most of your art is kind of odd. This also feels like a book that was written by someone still very much in the middle of her mental health crisis. I don't think she's actually recovered from her eating disorder. There's a lot of obsessive writing about thinness in this, and a lot of her worst stories also seem to be of her mom treating her poorly, but she blames all of her issues on men in her life. I don't know, it feels very much like an unreliable narrator. I gave it 3 stars, but that 3rd star is solely because of the chapter where her dog Petunia dies. It made me cry. It was very emotional. I, you know, had a parasocial relationship with Petunia from John Mulaney's stand-up, I guess, and it was, I hate it when animals get hurt or die. So that chapter did make me cry, but the rest of it I kind of started out enjoying and then kind of fell into like, girl, you okay? I think you need to go back to some sort of therapy. Maybe not whatever you're in before, it didn't seem to work, but like you need something. Moving on, for the O level of lore, I read Fangs by Sarah Andersen. This is a very sweet graphic novel. It's just like vignettes of a vampire and werewolf falling in love. Super cute, lots of very fun puns. 5 stars, I loved it. Different from her normal style of, I've forgotten the name again. It's like Sarah's Adventures or something, where she's got her little like kind of caricature of herself going through life. Different art style, but I would say similar type of humor, and just like real fun and Halloween-y. Great for this time of year. Then for the Q level of lore, I read One Piece, the like collected volume of 1, 2, and 3 by Eiichiro Oda. This is a very fun and kooky manga about a kid who wants to be a pirate and like sets off to collect a crew and hunt down this very famous treasure, which is the One Piece. Also, he ate a magic fruit and now his body stretches like rubber, which is really fun for fight scenes. I had watched the live adaptation on Netflix before and really enjoyed this, so all the stories in this volume were familiar to me. I don't know what volume the show goes up to, but it definitely covers the first 3 books and then some. I gave it, I think, 4 stars. It's not enough for me to become a One Piece like crazy fan or anything because I can't read 1,000+ books of manga of this series. I can't do it. It's not gonna happen. I can't do that to myself. So I will maybe read it every now and then, but I'm not gonna become a diehard One Piece fan. But those were all of the 14 books that I read for my core courses in the autumn equinox of the Magical Readathon. I will be posting another video, I'm hoping like the following week, but I'm not entirely sure about timing yet, with all of the extra reading that I did during the month of September, so keep an eye out for that. Thank you so much for watching this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I hope to see you next time. Now go read a book. I'm so sorry, David Chang. I know nothing about you except from this book. With all of the extra reading that I did during the month of September, well, she wants to be involved. Yeah, she wants to be where the people are. Parsnip also wants to have her own YouTube channel where she can yap. You know, this is kind of her cri de coeur. It's her like